I don't talk about it a lot on the channel, but I'm currently in a pretty long-term relationship.
Yeah.
This is Matt. Say hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
So Matt and I have been together for 8 years. We live together, own a cat and a dog together, and I don't really leave the house, so he's most of who I talk to. And I want you guys to keep that in mind while I show you what happens next. Let's get an undisclosed amount of time on the clock, and let's begin. What is my birthday?
Arbor Day.
No. What is my favorite movie?
The Tape from the Ring.
No. What was the name of my childhood dog?
He Who Must Not Be Named.
No. What? How long have we been together?
Oh, it's 6 years.
No, I literally just said that one. What is my favorite food?
Communion wafers.
He actually got that one right, but everyone else he missed. Okay, you may go now. He actually lives down there. As I've just demonstrated, just because you love someone, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're on the same page as them. And that's why we use the couples app Paired. For as much as we hate to admit it, relationships can be a lot of work, but work doesn't always have to be hard. From fun quizzes and questions to guided relationship journeys, Paired offers couples a wide range of activities to do together to help increase communication and strengthen their bond. Think of it this way. If your relationship is school, then Paired is like that computer game your teacher let you play sometimes that taught you how to type. Paired is backed by expert advice and research, and it works for couples at any stage in your relationship. So if you think you and your partner could use a fun and interesting way to communicate more, then this is the app for you. And if you don't think that, then, well, you're probably wrong. Click my link below to get a 7-day free trial and 25% off Paired Premium to help you maintain and deepen your connection with your partner. And you only need one subscription between the two of you, so that's an even better deal than you realize. So yeah, thank you so much to Paired for sponsoring the episode, and with that, let's begin. Actually, no, before we begin, I want you to look at this. Hey, Matt?
Yes.
What's the cat's birthday?
February 28th.
Hello, friends! If you've been keeping up with the channel, then you know that recently I've decided to dip my toes back into the cool, refreshing, extremely problematic waters of America's Next Top Model. Only this time, I'm not limiting myself to cycle 6. And I'm not gonna lie, it feels good to be back. I had a lot of fun talking about the flesh-eating bacteria episode, and it reminded me why when I went to start making videos, Top Model was the first thing I chose to talk about. Still, for as excited as I am to enter this new version of an old chapter of my life, I do also find it a little daunting. The way I did things before meant knowing what to do was easy. I was just talking about one single season in order, so when it came time to pick my next episode, I just had to pick the next episode. Now that I've opened things up to the entire series, it's a bit more complicated than that. I'm currently standing in front of a veritable buffet of some of the craziest television you've ever seen, and while that's great, it also makes knowing where to get started a little bit difficult. I don't know if you guys know this, but I actually have a lot of trouble staying focused on things. And the more options I'm given, the harder things get in that regard. I already have a list of like 17 episodes in mind that I want to discuss, and it's extremely difficult for me to try and narrow that list down to just one. I'll tell myself, just keep things simple, Talk about the time that they posed as homeless people with actual homeless people. But unfortunately, before I can force myself to pull the trigger on that, a voice in my head will speak up and say, okay, but they also posed as giant Greek salads once. Are we just supposed to ignore that? Still, I didn't want to let my inability to make choices hold me back. Again. So I really thought about it, and eventually I think I did come up with the perfect episode to help me through it. Mostly because it's vaguely related to my inability to make choices. I'm pretty sure that what I've just described to you is called choice paralysis. And it's one of many ways in which I am, as the kids would say, neurodivergent. And it just so happens that neurodivergence is one of the many issues that Top Model tackled, despite having absolutely no business doing so. In Cycle 9, the show cast a contestant named Heather Kuzmich, who was diagnosed with both ADHD and what was at the time called Asperger's, but for the purposes of this video, I will just be calling it autism. And the second I remembered that, I felt like I had to make it my next video. After all, Top Model was the first TV show I ever saw featuring someone who's autistic, and making videos about Top Model is how I learned that I'm apparently visibly autistic. So frankly, it feels silly that I wouldn't make a video about the autism episode of Top Model. So yeah, let's do it. This is Cycle 9, Episode 2, The Models Go Green. Before I begin, though, I do feel the need to state clearly for the record that I've never actually been diagnosed as autistic. Unless you count YouTube comments, in which case I've been diagnosed a lot. Which is not to say that I'm definitely not. Honestly, I go back and forth on it. Some of the things I've read do resonate with me, but others really don't, so who the fuck knows? Like I said, I am definitely neurodivergent. I have quite a bit of ADHD, and since I know there's a lot of overlap there, I do wonder sometimes if maybe that's just making me present as autistic. Not for nothing, but I do remember getting tested for a lot of shit growing up. I practically lived at Dr. Ingersoll's home office, so I feel like they would have figured it out if it were really that obvious. That said, though, you guys really seem to think it's that obvious, so I honestly get nervous sometimes that I'm just so bad at making videos that it reads as symptoms. Like between the way I read the teleprompter and my inability to set up a proper eye line, I think I may have just accidentally created autism. And I worry sometimes that one day, after years of hard work, I'm going to get on stage to accept whatever the D-list content creators version of the Nobel Prize is. And as I'm giving my speech, someone will get up on stage and yell, "I've run the tests, and he's not actually autistic." And then everyone will start booing me and throwing tomatoes at my face. Or maybe I'm just autistic. For the record, I don't give a crap if I am or not. It's just that enough people have kind of just decided that I am, that it sometimes feels like I'm pulling the wool over people's eyes. I have a lot of autistic viewers who I really value, and I don't want anyone thinking I'm trying to capitalize off of you by trying to pass myself off as something I'm not. Which is not to say that I'm above capitalizing off of stuff like this, you know. I do have merch that kind of has the word autistic on it. I was going to be a guest on Drawfee, and I wanted to sell t-shirts. Marketing them to autistic artists was just good business. Although that said, just to be safe and make sure that I'm properly honoring the autistic community, I have also pledged to give 0% of profit from sales of those t-shirts to Autism Speaks. Because I heard they really suck. But yeah, my point is that I'm never trying to pass myself off as something I'm not. I'm just doing my best to be me. And in doing so, a lot of people have decided that I am something that maybe I'm not. Maybe I am, but I don't know. And I don't plan on figuring it out anytime soon. Um, like I said, I definitely have ADHD, and I've heard that the test is very long. I don't know, maybe I'm just oversharing right now, but I feel like I should be as upfront about this as possible because I feel like if I am not, that may change how some people view this video. So yeah, post what you guys think my diagnosis is in the comments below, I guess. And with that, let's actually get started with the episode. Like I said, this is technically episode 2, but really it's the first proper episode of the season. And that means that a lot of it is devoted to telling us who the girls are and why they're there.
It's so cool to be here with all these girls. I always thought that I could just be a model. So this is the perfect opportunity for me.
I've been through so much stuff. I was in foster care for 6 years. I mean, I've seen every kind of hurt. And I know I will give this everything I have.
All right. Both equally inspiring stories. Rewatching these earlier episodes is fascinating because it's pretty clear from the beginning that the producers already have storylines in mind for all the girls. So it's cool to be reminded of what they were supposed to be once you know how they play out. I actually think this cycle has one of the best examples of a contestant not being who they were supposed to be with Victoria.
I've never been west of Chicago, so being in Los Angeles is a whole different world for me. Now I have to bring on my super nerdy skills in terms of fashion modeling.
She talks really quietly, keeps calling herself a nerd, and she studies medieval history at Yale. And it feels pretty clear that she was meant to be the shy girl who slowly learns to embrace her inner model, but that's not really how things go. More on that later, though. One girl whose storyline does seem to play out exactly as the producers were hoping is Heather, because that storyline is pretty much just she's autistic, which she is.
I do have a disability. It's Asperger's syndrome, a mild version of autism. It also includes the person being very awkward in social situations.
My top priority is learning and having a good experience.
You know, Top Model's never had the smoothest editing, but I do kind of wonder if that clip in particular was made intentionally choppy to give the impression that she speaks a little more stilted than she actually does, because that was fairly egregious. I feel like that had to be Frankenstein together from no fewer than 3 separate interviews. Like she's wearing a different outfit by the end of her sentence. And that actually happens a lot on this show. You can probably catch it in most episodes if you pay close enough attention. I've actually seen it happen where the person speaking changes by the end of the sentence. Usually when they do that, though, it's because they need something very specific said in order to move the story forward. But I don't think that's necessary here. Basically, all she says is that she's autistic. And I know for a fact that they could have made that point without pasting it together like the video equivalent of a hostage note. Hell, we're only 2 minutes into this episode, and they've already shown us a cleaner take of her getting that same basic message across.
And Heather, a stunning beauty struggling with a disability.
Tell me, at 13 years old, what were you diagnosed with?
Asperger's and ADHD.
For whatever reason, in this era of the show, the first episode of the season tended to be very politically minded. In the last season, the first photo shoot was literally the girls posing as political issues. And the one before that, the photo shoot was the dark side of modeling. The one after this is that homelessness one I told you about earlier. This one, I'm not really sure what they're going for. Based on the title, it seems like their goal here is to promote environmentalism in some way, but then the photo shoot is about the dangers of smoking, so yeah, I don't know what that's about. And what's weird is that there actually are environmental impacts of smoking. You'd think in the spirit of the season, they'd have had one of the girls pose as littering or something, but no. Really, the only way the models go green in this episode is that now the van they drive them around in runs on biodiesel.
Girls, this is going to be your vehicle for the entire competition. This cycle, Tyra wanted to pay special attention to the environment, so top model is going green.
I'm pretty supportive of the environmental kick, and it really is important to be aware of like what keeps our earth good.
I don't remember Mila very well because she gets eliminated first, but I gotta say, I'm starting to wish she stayed around a little bit longer. I'm a huge fan of her confessionals so far. What's upsetting is that her saying that sentence makes her smarter on the environment than like 60% of the lawmakers running this country. The girls pile into that moderately eco-friendly van and are driven to their new house, which is also apparently eco-friendly, although how that is, I'm not entirely sure.
We run in, and the first thing that you see are just beautiful pictures of Tyra everywhere, and you walk down these gorgeous stairs, and there's our runway. And it's all lit up, and we have a big monitor that we can see ourselves practicing on.
The green theme is all through the house. It's cool. It provides a really good vibe.
Okay, if all it took to go green was vibes, then solving climate change would be a lot... Actually, no, we probably still wouldn't be able to do it. Still, though I'm not sure how it's green, I will say that of all the top model houses, this one is probably my favorite. Unless it's the same house every season. Which it might be. But if it's not, this one's my favorite. I think I just like it when plants are indoors.
I've never even gotten close to a wonderful house like this before. I'd probably get the cops called on me.
That's kind of sad, honestly. I feel like we as a nation have failed if someone gets the opportunity to stay in a really nice house and their first thought is, under normal circumstances, this would get me arrested. Also, why are their beds like that? It looks like they're making them sleep in the children's ward of a hospital. The contestants barely have time to unpack before the producers start pumping Heather for childhood trauma again.
I was not a normal child. I would be by myself a lot of the times, and it was quite lonely, and it brought up questions of, like, what was wrong with me? I mean, why couldn't people understand me? I hope I can get along with the other girls.
Oh, that poor girl. She's drawing. My heart breaks. Look, I'm not saying that it doesn't suck feeling like you're on the outside of stuff, but the way they're presenting this feels like they should be scoring it with that Sarah McLachlan song from those sad dog commercials. Also, I'm not sure she does feel like she's on the outside. I think odds are just as good that she's just vibing on her bed. You can make anything seem worse than it is if you splice in footage of someone talking about how sad their childhood was. Like, this is the exact same clip, but I sliced in the first piece of free stock footage I could find.
And it was quite lonely, and it brought up questions of, like, what was wrong with me? I mean, why couldn't people understand me? I hope I can get along with the other girls.
I don't know who that Santa is, but I'm just happy he survived long enough to learn to dance. And yeah, maybe this is just another tally in the I'm autistic column, but I feel like if I were in a new house with a bunch of very loud people, I'd much rather chill by myself for a bit than go skinny dipping while I'm being filmed. Although for the record, Heather does... They don't call attention to it, but in another scene, we see her taking a bath with all the girls. So at the very least, she's more capable of coming out of her shell than I am. Granted, that's not a particularly high bar, but it does make it a little harder to be sad about her sitting on her bed for a moment. To my eyes, if there's anything actually sad about this scene, it's not that she's sitting alone in her room. It's that the lights are still on and the noises she's listening to aren't a 4-hour video essay about theme parks. Honestly, I think the only thing I might have done differently in this situation is that I probably wouldn't have chosen to sit directly outside of all the frolicking, but given how well composed that shot is, I kind of get the sense that Heather didn't choose that either. I think they may have put her there. Although I do feel the need to state for the record that anytime I mention producer interference, that is speculation on my part. I don't know that to be true 100%. But that said, if it's not true, then I think the reason Heather is there is because the house was purposefully designed so that nobody could ever have a moment of privacy. Based on this later scene, it doesn't seem like the girls have the luxury of being more than 20 feet away from one another at any given time.
It's like she's on the second floor. It's something going on with her. I want to know.
No, she has that little. She has a slight form of autism, and well, she has social anxiety and stuff like that too. And that's okay. I mean,
I'm not gonna let this autism bring me down. This is going to be the thing that makes me stronger.
And again, this feels a wee bit produced to me. Or those girls are just evil, but it feels weird that they would be talking about her that openly. The scene is meant to suggest that Heather is in the kitchen sweeping like Cinderella while a bunch of her evil stepsisters are within earshot talking shit on her. And while I don't doubt that they were talking shit on her, I have trouble believing that it played out exactly like they showed us. If you watch that footage again, you can see that Heather is never actually in the same shot as the girls when they're talking about her. The only time they're seen together, it's clear that some time has passed because if you look in the background, you'll see that Umbrielle is now sitting between Janet and Bianca. Also, just listen to their conversation. It sounds edited.
she has that little. She has a slight form of autism, and well, she has social anxiety and stuff like that too. And that's okay. I mean,
I'm not gonna let this autism bring me down.
They clearly cut her off mid-sentence. And Lord knows if she was actually saying something mean, they would have shown it. There's one moment immediately before this one that does actually seem like maybe they're talking about her right in front of her face.
There's orange pills over there already.
the orange pills are Heather K's. She likes to make a mess.
Yeah, I can already tell she's messy.
You do what you want to do for your hygiene and stuff in your own account, but I'm not kidding, y'all. It's something that needs to be spoken about. Heather, I know that she's kind of spacey, and that's part of who she is and stuff, but I'm not picking up her orange pills.
They do pan over from Heather to Janet in one continuous shot there. And given some of their other editing choices, I don't know that they're invested enough to fake it that smoothly. Even still, though, I'm pretty sure that this conversation is being stitched together by the producers. My eyes aren't great, so I'll admit that I might be wrong here, but if you look closely at the background when Celicia enters, Heather's not there. If you rewatch that panning shot, Janet smiles and looks back towards Heather in a way that makes me think she's not talking about her, she's talking to her, because she wants her to pick up her orange peels off the ground, which... honestly feels totally reasonable. Jesus Christ. And to Heather's credit, I think she does. That's probably why the next time we see her, she has a broom. Again, there's no way for me to know for sure, but if I were to guess, I would say that this scene is less Mean Girls and more strangers forced to live in a house together, solving problems using their words. Which is not to say that they're not mean, heavens no. But I feel like the meanest thing we hear in this scene is this.
It's like she's on the second floor.
And I would argue that that's not even the meanest thing that Bianca says in this episode.
I don't think Lisa has what it takes to be my next model.
Lisa, are you really a stripper?
I don't think America's Next Top Model is going to be an exotic dancer. It's not happening.
She's an 18-year-old girl in a competition with a bunch of other 18-year-old girls. There's gonna be some shit talk. I don't think that's a sign of some deep-seated ableism. Or maybe it is. There's really no way to know, but even if it is, it doesn't change the fact that it feels very clear that the show is actively focusing on her autism. Throughout the episode, we get a lot of confessionals about Heather, and it gives the impression that everyone is constantly talking about her behind her back.
Heather, she's just in over her head. I don't think she's ready for this competition. I think she lacks social skills, and I think that ultimately that is gonna hurt her in this competition.
But the thing you forget while you're watching these shows is that the people in those talking heads are answering questions. I don't think that everyone is constantly talking shit on Heather. I think that everyone was constantly being asked about everyone else, and those are the things they showed people saying about Heather because they suited their narrative. Not for nothing, but most of the time it actually feels like the girls are choosing their words more carefully with Heather compared to other people.
Lisa is phony. She tries too hard. You don't have to be someone you're not. Bianca is a little insecure, and I think that she's conceited.
And here's the thing, Heather probably talks shit too.
You real lame. I'm not being disrespectful to you.
I started getting a headache from all the stupid yelling. I'm like, ugh.
That clip feels like the closest we ever get to Heather being treated like the other contestants. And I kind of think the only reason they kept it in is because they thought that her saying she had a headache would sound enough like a symptom that it would remind the audience that she's autistic. One thing that bugged me is that it seems like there was one interview where she was actually emotional over her diagnosis specifically, and they kept piping it in on the end of everything she says in a way that makes it feel like her entire life is agony and autism is the cause.
It's Asperger's syndrome, and it was quite lonely. This is going to be the thing that makes me stronger.
And not only is that unfair to Heather, but it's also unfair to autistic people in general, because the way they keep bringing everything back to her ASD, it kind of makes it feel like everything she does is a symptom, and I don't know, some things are just personality traits. I'm not an expert, that's why I had that whole spiel at the beginning, but I looked it up, and I'm pretty sure that throwing orange peels on the ground isn't an autistic thing. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that people shouldn't feel bad for things autistic people go through sometimes, but the show is making it seem like we should feel bad for her solely because she's autistic. And that really sucks. To make matters worse, for as much as the producers are trying to mine Heather for sympathy, they themselves do not seem all that sympathetic. Surprising no one, they're kind of dicks.
You know, if I do act a little bit weird, I hope they won't consider me automatic ditz bucket, that they'll actually be a little bit more lenient when I do have moments where I slip up.
Yeah, if they really cared about Heather's diagnosis, you'd think that they would work around it in ways to accommodate her. Instead, they give her the only photo prompt that requires her to pose with another person. She's paired with Celicia to portray secondhand smoke, and is one of many truly horrific pictures from this week's photo shoot designed to demonstrate the negative effects of smoking. The pictures basically involve the girls glamorously lighting up while some horrible alternate version of themselves stares back in the mirror, and it's all supposed to make the point of like, here's what smoking actually looks like. As always, I wanted to do my best to recreate the photo shoot, but I don't smoke. Cigarettes? So I decided to do a version of it that was a little bit more personal to me. Like I said, this photo shoot is them looking glamorous while they smoke, and I did not feel like buying a pack of cigarettes. So this is part of a joint that I have. Please don't demonetize me, it's legal. As for the glamour, I wasn't really sure how to go about that. I feel like the closest I ever come to being glamorous is wearing a tie, so can do that. And then also found this. It's like a like a little hat that clips onto your head. Thought it was pretty snazzy. Makes me look like a fancy monkey. You know? One that people pay to see. I also have this. A while ago, I just sort of was buying props that were like cheap that I thought might be funny to work into a video. So I have a cigarette filter, and I feel like I have to use that, especially because I have used it. It does kind of make it so that you don't cough on smoke as much. And it does this, which I think is very silly. So like, ugh. I'm supposed to look like cool and sexy like Cruella de Vil, but I just look like the penguin with this thing. Whatever. Where'd my joint go? And the other part of the photo shoot is that my reflection is going to be looking back at me and look different. So I didn't buy a vanity mirror, obviously, but I bought a hand mirror and some green wallpaper. So I'm going to put this here to have my reflection. And then I'll like green screen it out. Okay, so like. Hopefully I can. I didn't want to light up because it's just gross to do on camera. Although watch my live streams if you don't agree with that statement. But yeah, hopefully I can find some smoke to green screen on over it. We'll see. This is the most work I've ever done for anything. I feel like I need to put my foot up. I think they always they sit like this. Okay, so now it's time to do the dark side of this. So I should be less glamorous, which means I'm going to loosen my tie. And then they all had like makeup on. The only makeup I have is eye black. I'm just put that on my eyes and then like smear it. Hopefully they do what I'm imagining. Yeah, it looks ghoulish. Properly. Or I look like I'm in Kiss. And then I have an eye patch. I smoke so much weed that I lost an eye. Oh no, my tiny hat. And yeah, the photos are meant to show the dark side of smoking, and for me, the dark side of my version of smoking usually means eating snacks that I wish I hadn't. So I have 3 Oreos here. I had more, but then I smoked the rest of that joint and ate them. So yeah, I'll just pose. I don't think they had the cigarette in the reflection. I think it is just, I should hold this up just as like a frame, I guess, and then just like. I need to more look sadder. Okay. Damn, Oreos are good. Okay, I have one more. I have one more Oreo. I need to make this work. I don't want to lose my pretty. Shit. All right, I'm gonna go clean up this. And then here's the picture. And here's the thing. I actually think that this is one of the more clever concepts they've ever had for a challenge on this show. But that does not mean that I think they should have done it as a challenge on this show. For one thing, though the sentiment here is good, the execution feels a little flawed, because it still requires the girls to look glamorous while smoking, and that part of the photo is much more prominently displayed than the reflection, so the message here feels a little mixed. Doing it at the beginning of the season also means that they strain to give every one of the contestants their own unique side effect, and that kind of makes the point they're going for feel a little overblown. Which, like, for the record, I don't think the point is actually overblown. Smoking is bad. But it's hard to see one girl portray hair loss from chemotherapy and another girl portray losing hair from chemotherapy and not feel a little like, really? You couldn't come up with 12 different ones? Especially because a lot of the different ones they did come up with aren't quite as severe as the others. More than anything, though, I just don't feel like they're treating the subject matter with the gravity it deserves because, well, it's top model.
That's really pretty. Oof.
This show is ridiculous. Honestly, I think the reason it works is that usually it feels like everyone making it is keenly aware of just how ridiculous it is. Except for Tyra. And when something ridiculous tries to do something serious, it doesn't make the ridiculous thing feel more serious. It just makes the serious thing feel ridiculous.
Let me see in the mirror. Oh.
My look is supposed to be after I have chemotherapy. I would call it sort of bozo.
And here's the thing. Mila is right to laugh. She looks insane. Raja also clearly thinks it's funny, and she's the one who did the makeup. Jay doesn't seem to agree, though.
I don't know, I just keep laughing. I know it's not funny, but that's like the only way I can react.
It was kind of sad, though, watching Mila, because I think she struggled with connecting with a true emotion of sorrow and regret.
Hearing him say that Mila needs to take this seriously feels worse to me than if he would have just laughed along with her. For him to act like he actually thinks that they're changing the world here feels way more disrespectful than if he were to just lean into the campiness of it all. Because I know he knows it's campy. Although again, there is a chance that Tyra does not. She may actually think that they're changing the world here.
You all did a very controversial photo shoot this week. During my modeling career, 98% of models smoked or had smoked before. So we're taking a stand on America's Next Top Model. This is a no smoking cycle. So many young girls are fans of America's Next Top Model. And right now, so many young girls are fans of you. So if they see their idol puffing and smoking a cigarette, what does that make them think? Wow, she's smoking, that's cool. So that's why smoking will be banned as of tomorrow. So if you want to smoke tonight, get your last puffs, and then it's over.
I think the intention is good. They absolutely shouldn't be promoting smoking to their younger viewers, but it never feels like the show actually cares about these issues for any reason beyond the ways they can be used to make good television. Like, I can't shake the feeling that Tyra went up to the producers and said, "This season I want to take a stand by banning smoking in the house." And then the producers were like, "Perfect, them going through withdrawal will be great for the drama." Like I said, Mila is eliminated, and one of the things they use to justify that is the fact that she laughed.
So Jay said he felt that when he was looking at you with your hair falling out shot, it was more humorous to you than serious. It was like you were laughing through it.
It was really hard to take it seriously. I just felt like I looked so absolutely ridiculous.
You might think that you look comedic, but the reality is it's a very serious subject.
I understand.
And it's frustrating because even if they do think this is serious, I don't know that the judges are necessarily holding themselves to the same standards that they're holding the contestants to.
This shot here looks like you just farted. You just lifted up off the seat.
Twiggy really liked that one. Unfortunately for her, though, she's not laughing for long. Before I go into this next part, I do need to issue a little content warning. The photo being judged deals with the side effects of smoking that affect pregnant people, so if that sounds like not your jam, then I recommend skipping ahead about 2 minutes. I completely understand. It's honestly pretty disrespectful. But yeah, as I said earlier, the producers clearly decided that Victoria was the shy, quiet one from the get-go. And I guess they gave that memo to Twiggy, who really runs with it.
Here is your best shot. You'd never know from that photograph how shy and insecure you are.
And here's the thing, I'm pretty sure those were the first words Twiggy has ever said to her. If I were a betting man, I would bet every dime I had on her not actually knowing Victoria's name yet in that moment. And you know, I'm very obviously shy and insecure. But if someone I just met said that to me, I'd probably not be too happy about it. Of course, I wouldn't say anything because I'm shy and insecure, but Victoria genuinely isn't, so she speaks up.
I'm not insecure.
Look.
I may be soft-spoken, but I'm not insecure.
And yeah, the judges do not like that.
You know, try and say that same thing, but try and say it with a smile, because if you say it with a frown, people will immediately not like you. So
You need to work on charm.
Yes, ma'am.
It's honestly kind of impressive that there's a picture of her holding a stillborn baby doll in the background. And that's somehow not the most uncomfortable part of this scene. I feel like Nigel probably wasn't the person who should have told her to smile more. Frankly, nobody should have, but if somebody had to, it definitely shouldn't have been the one straight guy. Especially because I don't know how she gets that point across any nicer than she did there. I thought she was being pretty congenial. Of course, she doesn't stay that way. Victoria is obviously really smart, and so she figures out early on that the producers are trying to put her into a box that she doesn't want to be put into. And for whatever reason, she takes her frustrations with that out entirely on Twiggy, which is very funny to me. The two develop this intensely antagonistic relationship that comes to a head with this interaction after Victoria poses as a cactus.
I think you just need to relax into it and then just be yourself.
It's quite interesting that you were given cactus, which is quite prickly because...
I get one thing straight. I don't have a prickly disposition.
You don't?
No, I do not.
I actually think you are a little bit prickly.
I don't want to say that Twiggy is afraid of Victoria, but this is the last season that she's on the show. And I'm not sure that's a coincidence. I do wonder, though, how much further Victoria would have gone if she didn't have the gall to stand up for herself. It does kind of seem like they like to give the first call out of the first episode to an underdog contestant. And if you ignore the subject matter, Victoria's photo is actually really strong. I think had she gone along with what she clearly knew the producers wanted from her, there's a good chance they would have pushed her a lot further along in the competition. Although then again, let's be real, nobody was beating Heather in an underdog contest this week. Her inspirational rise to the top is more or less the foundation of this entire episode. We spend a large chunk of it watching as she struggles in the face of her autism to adapt to the competition, and it all comes to a head with this emotional phone call to her mom.
Hello?
Mama?
Heather?
Hey.
Are you okay?
Kinda.
Oh, baby.
Just really frustrated.
You have to believe in yourself, Heather. And I know you do. You're just having a down moment. Stay encouraged, okay? And be sweet to the other girls.
I don't know, Mom. I don't feel like I can trust them. That's the thing.
Just hang in there, okay? I love you.
I love you too, Mom.
Truly, I think so long as her photo was halfway passable and she wasn't doing anything visibly racist in it, she was gonna get that first call out. And mostly I'm okay with that. Her photo wasn't bad. It was definitely in the top 5 of the episode. If Celicia wasn't in it, it might have even been in the top 3. Still, I think there were other deserving contenders. Outside of Victoria, I think that Chantal's photo really captured the old Hollywood vibes it seemed like they were going for. And frankly, I think the case could be made that Jenna could have gotten first call out every single episode of this cycle. I'm still not entirely sure if there's a skill to this show, but if there is, I think that Jenna is the most skilled contestant they've ever had. Based solely on the photo, I think that any one of those could have been first called and it would have been totally justified. What set Heather apart here was her story. Which is weird because I'm not so sure that what we saw this week was Heather's story. I don't know that Heather is an underdog. She's a raven-haired Amazon in a modeling competition. I think she's going to be fine. Which is not to say that she's not going to have her struggles, but I have to imagine that so will everyone else. It just seems like Heathers are the only ones they focus on. This episode honestly feels like it was designed to make us underestimate her as much as possible. I think the most egregious example of this happens during the challenge. This week, the girls are sent to an Old Navy and asked to put together an outfit for judging, which is fun because they were clearly contractually obligated to act like they're excited to shop at Old Navy.
You're going to Old Navy.
And at one point, while everyone is scrambling to get ready, they cut to Jenna saying this.
Heather, I could see her having trouble. We're all like, okay, this is trendy, and Heather has no idea what trendy is.
Which feels weird. For one thing, based on the results of this challenge, I'm not entirely sure how well any of them really know what's trendy. It very much looks like they were all forced to shop at an Old Navy. More than that, though, it feels like they're suggesting that autistic people couldn't possibly understand fashion, which I don't think is true. I feel like some autistic people do understand fashion. Andy Warhol, maybe? Again, I'm not an expert, so I Googled it, and I guess that this isn't not a stereotype. There are reasons that autism might have made this challenge more difficult for Heather than some of her competitors, but even still, that doesn't seem to be what the show's trying to suggest here. Cutting to that talking head makes it feel like an autistic person couldn't possibly compete in this challenge. And because nobody offers any counter to that, someone watching this show without any knowledge of autism might take that as a statement of fact. Which, like, for the record, she does as well as anyone else. She certainly didn't win, but I also don't think that she was the worst just by virtue of the fact that she avoided wearing a chunky statement necklace. Although again, even if she was the worst, that could just be because she was the worst. When Jenna said Heather didn't know what's trendy, that may very well have been her saying, like, I lived with the girl for a week, and it's clear that she doesn't care about clothes. But in the context of the episode, it feels like the implication here is that it's because she's neurodivergent. And that happens a lot this episode. Think about that phone call to her mom I showed you. If you look at it through the most basic storytelling lens, I don't think there's a way to read it as anything besides her breaking down because the stresses of her disease have made the competition difficult for her, but like, is that what's actually happening? I would honestly be shocked if every contestant who's ever been on this show didn't make that exact same phone call at one point in their run, because, like, I don't know, they're basically torturing these girls. Of course they're gonna call home and cry. It would be weird if they didn't. This episode conditions you to believe that every challenge Heather faces is rooted in her autism. And by extension, it also makes you feel like every success she has is in spite of it. They focus on her struggles so intensely that by the time they call her name first at judging, she feels less like someone doing well at a competition and more like a Make-A-Wish kid.
The first name that I'm going to call is Heather. Heather, the judges are blown away by your non-conventional looks. There's something about you that they say they want to know more of. Congratulations. You're still in the running towards becoming America's Next Top Model.
And that sucks because I actually think she is doing well in the competition. She's a really good model. Completely unrelated to her autism, I'd say that she has one of the most consistent portfolios in the history of the show. I think the only real critique she ever got on a picture is that she relied too heavily on her side profile. Which, saying it out loud, the fact that she had trouble making eye contact with the camera may have been an autism thing. But even if it was, once she got that note, she took it and adjusted and took more great pictures. She is categorically good at the things they've asked her to do thus far in the competition. So pushing her to the tippy top just for the sake of a story kind of undermines that. And what's worse is that I don't even think it was necessary. If what they were after was a good underdog story, then they already had one without having to force it. Like I said, there were a lot of good pictures this week, but for me personally, the best by a mile was Lisa's. And based on their reaction to it, the judges seem to agree.
I love your legs. I love the pose. There's a sauciness about you that I like.
It's cheeky, sultry, it's all those things that you want to see in a picture.
Let's look at your tragic shot.
What I can say is thank goodness for the reflection. Without the reflection, you make this look so good.
The close-up of this picture reminds me of a very high-fashion, successful model by the name of Shalom Harlow. Even your energy, the shape of your eyes, your eyebrows. I mean, it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
And you know, does Lisa have a disability she has to overcome? Not to my knowledge, but that doesn't mean she doesn't have her own shit. They've been giving us a bunch of little glimpses into her backstory in the margins of this episode, and based on what we see, she's had a tough life.
I've never even gotten close to a wonderful house like this before. I'd probably get the cops called on me. I don't think America's Next Top Model is going to be an exotic dancer. It's not happening. I was in foster care for 6 years. I mean, I've seen every kind of hurt. And I know I will give this everything I have.
Based on those clips, I'd wager a bet that she has had just as hard a road getting to where she is as Heather. If not way harder. Not for nothing, but the fact that she was diagnosed at this point in time means that Heather probably also had a lot of advantages that the other contestants didn't. Based on that phone call home, it at the very least seems like she has a pretty strong support system. And I don't really want to sit here trying to quantify people's personal hardships because I don't think that's a great thing to do, but by that same token, for them to focus so heavily on one contestant's struggles while sweeping another's under the rug does feel wrong. Although again, I guess that everything I'm saying is ultimately speculation. I only know what they show us, so it's entirely possible that Heather also has a hard home life that they left on the cutting room floor. But if I'm gonna say that, I think I should also point out that it's entirely possible that there's another contestant on this season with autism who just isn't diagnosed yet. If I had to guess, I'd say Victoria. Like I said, she studied medieval history at Yale. And ultimately, I think that's what bugs me most about their treatment of Heather in this episode. I feel like there's a world where it's entirely different. What separates Heather from her fellow contestants isn't that she has struggles, it's that her struggles have a name, and that name probably looked very good on a press release. She had a built-in story that made her interesting, and unlike Lisa with her silly foster care, it wasn't a story that had been told on the show before. The sense I get watching this isn't that they wanted to present an accurate depiction of autism. I think they had a depiction of autism that they wanted, and they did their best to make that look accurate. They spent this entire episode more or less focused on one single aspect of her, which, given a lot of what we talked about today, actually feels kind of appropriate. I started this video talking about my choice paralysis, so it feels only right that I'd end it by talking about the flip side of that, and that's what's called hyperfixation. Based on the name, you'd think it'd be a good thing, but no. Actually, that's not true. It can be a good thing. I think if I could harness my hyperfixations, I could probably take over the world, but unfortunately, that's not really how it works. And I'm not going to spend too much time explaining this because, well, based on what I know about my audience, most of y'all already know what I'm about to say. But what it means is that occasionally, or most of the time, I'll hone in on one specific thing, and that will become the only thing that I care about. Maybe there's one sentence that I want to get just right, so I'll spend 5 hours on it, even though I need to be done with a script in 6. Or I'll find myself in a K-hole, and I'll become so focused on finishing this sleeve that I'll do that instead of, sleeping. Basically, you become so fixated on something small that you end up losing track of the bigger picture. And again, while that can be great, it's only when you're focused on the right things. Otherwise, it can really fuck things up. Like I said, before her, I genuinely don't know if I knew that autistic people could walk. So just seeing her exist completely changed my perception of what it meant to be on the spectrum. And I don't think I'm alone in that. More than that, though, I got to imagine that a lot of people out there saw her and were able to make a little more sense out of themselves. So even if they didn't always handle the subject matter great, I still think that despite everything I said today, by making this episode, Top Model did good. For the most part. I truly don't think it can be overstated just how important Heather is in the history of neurodivergent representation. I just wish they had actually represented her. But yeah, that's my video. Gonna just put it softly this time. Please like and subscribe and share and comment. Let me know if you're happy I'm doing Top Model again. If you wish I would go back to Bones. If you miss Christian movies. I will literally do whatever you people tell me to do, but I ask you this, and majority of you say, just do what makes you happy. And it's like, that doesn't get me anywhere. I just want to know what people want so I can give it to them, and hopefully the algorithm will reward me for it. I will say that if you liked this video, let me know, because I had other thoughts on Heather. And there's another episode with her I want to talk about, so I could definitely do a sequel to this, if that's something you guys would be interested in. Or not. I don't care. Also, if you have an extra couple of bucks to spare and want to support the channel, you could consider giving to my Patreon, or becoming a member, or super thanksing me, which I do have some super thanks. I need to super thanks back. My mustache is in my mouth. But my phone's dead, so it will wait until next video. I don't feel badly about that as I used to, because I make more videos now, so I feel like I'm super thanksing at the same rate that I once did. But sometimes I get to the end of the video and I'm just like, I don't want to read names, even though I really do, because I appreciate you guys. Also, one last thing, I am trying to do more live streams where I watch movies with you guys. Boring public domain movies. I did one. You can watch it now. The re-upload is available somewhere. I don't know technology. But yeah, I'm gonna try and do those either Wednesdays or Mondays or both. But I'm gonna try and do them. So yeah, let me know what you'd want to see in that regard, and come hang out. My camera's haunted. That'll make sense to the people who watched the live stream. But yeah, that's my video. Goodbye. Hello. I got a post for a thumbnail now while the names of the people who support me scroll. And I don't know. I guess like what? I'm a little nervous because I can't tell my monitor. Why am I? Okay, first of all, I should not be this. I literally bolted my camera to my wall and I still cannot get a consistent frame. I don't understand Hollywood, but there are some talented people out there, I'll tell you that much. So yeah, I guess it's a top model. Whoa! What? Why am I not? I need to zoom out, I think. Did I just record like so much of the video like that? Oh, that's much better. Although, whatever, I'll figure that out later. There's like a little like white thing right there that keeps popping up, and I don't know what it is. What? Someone told me that having big eyes is like a good way to get people's attention, but I don't think my eyes are that big, so like I don't know that I can utilize that in any meaningful way, but I'm trying like. I don't know, sometimes I feel like my eyes look like when Milhouse takes off his glasses. I think they're normal sized, but compared to my head, they're kind of small. Ooh. I don't know. I don't need to spend too much time on this. Worst case scenario, I'll just use a still of me eating Oreos from the photo shoot. I'm sure that'll get a lot of clicks. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.